Thanks so much for joining me. We've got yet another big rainfall event to talk about for parts of Alberta this weekend, so let's get straight into it and we'll have a look at the weather maker that will be responsible for this rainfall event. This is a satellite map showing water vapor imagery. It gives us a sense for airflow patterns, moisture patterns in the middle and upper atmosphere that can give us a sense for where air is rising and sinking. These whites here are sort of higher and colder cloud tops. We've also got some sort of thunderstorm activity in there, convection. And those yellows there are where air is sinking. And the moisture is less in the middle part of the atmosphere here. So, this cyclonically swirling area is a fairly small and compact, but potent upper level low pressure system. We also call it a cold core low because there's like a pool of cold air in the middle and upper atmosphere here. That's sort of trapped in the middle of that cyclone as it moves southeastward. And so as a result, we're going to be seeing lots of different types of rising air with this system. And one of them will be, we're going to be seeing a lot of convection because you have that cold air above a relatively warmer surface. You get a lot of convective clouds, showers, and thunderstorms. This will also be a feature with this system, bringing us some localized rainfall totals. As the system shifts southeastward into the province through this weekend, what it looks like in weather model land here, this is a model showing winds in the middle part of the atmosphere about 5 kilometers above the earth, and we can see that upper level low here in northwest BC as of this morning, and shifting slowly southeastward across British Columbia. To the south side of that low, we can see winds are stronger there. That's what we call a jet stream. It's a fairly short jet stream, but because the air is relatively warmer to the south and colder to the north in that cold core low, that jet stream is relatively strong in this area here. And that's going to become important for us on Saturday afternoon across southern, south central Alberta for potentially helping organize thunderstorms that form and could help them become stronger, even potentially severe on Saturday afternoon. So that'll be a consideration with that jet stream. That low is basically just going to then park itself over Alberta for basically a whole day throughout Sunday before it starts to gradually fill and weaken, moving off to the east as it gets caught up in the upper level flow into the prairies next week. Now let's take a look at our precipitation forecast here. We can see rainfall beginning in the Alberta elbow, sort of the western part of Alberta, Grand Cache, Hinton area, late Friday into early Saturday, and spreading quickly eastward across central Alberta. Because, like we said, it's a cold core low, there's that kind of pool of cold air aloft. It's going to be a really cold rain. If not, it'll be falling as snow in the higher elevations of the mountains. We're talking Wilmore Wilderness, Jasper National Park, probably going to pick up several centimeters of snow up in the alpine there. Lower down, we're going to be seeing mainly rainfall, or pretty much entirely rainfall, and likely thunderstorm activity in parts of Alberta on Saturday. So this is Saturday afternoon. That low pressure system starts to emerge near Calgary, and that could be associated with thunderstorm activity, some of which likely severe across southern and south central Alberta. Likely anywhere from Lethbridge, Calgary, Red Deer, that area, and eastward toward the Saskatchewan border afternoon and the evening. Most of our instability or unstable air, giving us that potential for strong updrafts, is kind of south of Calgary. And north of Calgary, though, we've got better wind shear. This is, the turning of the winds in the atmosphere a little bit better to the north. So, fairly classic zone of thunderstorm development, northwest of Calgary, Sundre area, eastward toward Olds. We could see some organized thunderstorm activity in that area as well. So, main threats with these storms, probably large hail, strong wind gusts, but there's always a non-zero tornado threat with these setups as well, especially where those winds are turning in the lower part of the atmosphere. I guess it just remains to be seen if we have unstable enough air to support relatively stronger storms north of Calgary. Otherwise, we're likely going to be seeing a few isolated strong storms east and south of Calgary as well with this setup. Rain persisting through central Alberta throughout the rest of the day, Saturday and into Sunday as well. So that's why we're going to be picking up lots of rainfall here in central parts of the province. And we also have that low kind of just sitting there over southeastern, east central Alberta. Because we have that cold core structure with this low and cold temperatures aloft, 3 kilometers above the ground, temperatures are below freezing. That makes it unstable in the lower atmosphere. And we can get what are called cold core funnel clouds with this type of setup. If we do get clearing, if the sun comes out around this low pressure system midday Sunday, and we start to get those towering cumulus clouds, look along the bases of those clouds for thin, wispy funnel clouds. These typically don't touch down. Stronger updrafts, sometimes you can get a weak tornado. But of course, in order to qualify as a tornado at the surface, you need to have damaging winds of at least 90 kilometers an hour. And sometimes these wispy funnels can reach right to the ground, but they're not associated with that tornado strength wind at the ground. So you can have like a fully condensed funnel on the ground that's not technically a tornado. It's a subtornadic vortex. So we're going to be watching out for that potential. Cold core funnel clouds, possibility of a weak tornado or two midday Sunday in parts of Alberta here if we end up clearing out and the air sufficiently destabilizes for those tall clouds. Also getting into western Saskatchewan, likely seeing some of that risk as well with scattered showers, thunderstorms, and rainfall across the region. Rainfall kind of tapering off through Monday in Alberta and slowly pushing east across Saskatchewan into Tuesday. So how much rain are we going to get from this? Well, based on the European model, which we've been looking at so far here, it looks like the middle third of Alberta is where we're going to be getting most of the rain. So, anywhere from Grand Cache, Hinton, Edson areas, Whitecourt. This model showing the bullseye of heaviest total sort of in the capital region, perhaps even south toward Red Deer and east a little bit as well. We're also getting meaningful rain across parts of western and southern Saskatchewan with this setup into Tuesday as well. So, but the heaviest rainfall totals approaching 100 millimeters on this particular model. But precipitation is already like the hardest metric for weather models. So we don't just want to look at one single model run of one single weather model. We can also compare with other runs of the same model. So what I mean by that is this model was run at 6 o'clock in the morning Mountain Time. And then we compare it to a model run 12 hours earlier. And how does the model output look? It actually is quite comparable. It has that bullseye of heaviest precipitation in a similar area with a secondary bullseye out here in the west, a little bit of a weakness that's sort of filled in here as of this morning's. But in general, the spatial pattern of precipitation and the intensity also sort of are fairly good agreement there. So if you have that internal consistency from run to run, that increases your confidence in that output. We can also compare to other models. So again, this is the European on the left and the Canadian on the right. And we notice right away the Canadian has the bullseye north and west of Edmonton as opposed to around or southeast of Edmonton, and actually some heavier totals as well. Some little bullseye area there approaching like 200 millimeters of rain. This doesn't mean this is going to happen, but it gives us a little bit of pause. We could think, well, maybe the European is underdoing it a little bit. Maybe the Canadian's overdoing it a little bit. Could the bullseye of where the heaviest precipitation be slightly off of where either of these models is showing it? We have uncertainty still is what I'm saying, even at this lead time. We're almost to the start of the system here, and we still have this inconsistency. But what this would tell me right off the bat is that some areas are likely going to get heavy precipitation, maybe in excess of 100 millimeters, just based on what the models are showing here, and likely right in the sort of middle third of Alberta, likely right around the Edmonton region, somewhere in that area could pick up heavy totals of precipitation. We can also compare or look at forecast ensembles. You basically take the weather model, European on the left or the Canadian on the right, and you run it, say 50 times with slightly different initial conditions to account for natural errors that could occur in the observation network. And then you compare those different runs with themselves. And if they all kind of cluster together, what I mean by that is like here, you look at the European, your total range of outcomes here, based on this morning's European ensemble, you got 50 members here. And, at the low end, you got sort of 20 millimeters, at the upper end, 130 millimeters. And then you have all of the rest of the ensemble members somewhere in between. What we're looking for are sort of where they're all in agreement. The closer they are together, the more likely that scenario or that outcome here. We do have a clustering here below 50 millimeters, and that's sort of 40 mils. But most are in that sort of 60 to 100 millimeter range, giving us higher confidence in that sort of outcome. The green here, of course, is the ensemble mean, which is what's showing up on the map that we saw there for the European here, close to 70 mils in the Edmonton area, which checks out here with the green line. The blue line is over 100 millimeters, over 90, and that's more in line with our deterministic outcome right here that we can see here, close to 90, based on the European model. So again, just when we're making a precipitation forecast, we're looking for consistency from model run to model run, and comparing models among themselves and with other models, that can give us increased confidence in these outcomes. Regardless, a big rainfall is likely through the middle third of Alberta, likely mostly focused along the Yellowhead Highway, the capital region, Edmonton area, 70 to 100 millimeters plus, some areas locally more than 100 millimeters. So what does that mean for our soil moisture? Well, eastern half of Alberta, we've been really wet recently, especially in the northeast, and much more precipitation than normal across eastern Alberta. So where we have the heavy precipitation kind of overlapping into this region of east central Alberta, it's going to be even wetter. So maybe not very good news to be seeing even more rain in this region. Other parts of central Alberta, we're getting west and southwest of Edmonton. This is going to be more perhaps beneficial rainfall, except of course if we do see those bullseyes of heavier precipitation in excess of 100 mils. That's a lot of water. You're likely going to be seeing standing water on fields, potential for localized flooding in a case like that. As well, across western and southern Saskatchewan, these drier soil moisture conditions here likely to be seeing some improvement as a result of the precipitation. Less in Saskatchewan, perhaps maybe 30, 40 millimeters plus with this system. So beneficial precipitation in some parts of the prairies, but again, east central Alberta, east of Edmonton, it's going to be quite wet and soupy out there. Let's be real. Throughout Edmonton area, if we get 70 to 100 mils, it's going to be a little soupy out there for a few days to come, and the mozzies are probably coming for you in the next week or two. What that looks like here from the Alberta River Forecast Center, we've got some high streamflow advisories that have been preemptively issued here for some river basins through the middle third of the province there. That's going to include, our Pembina River, our Brazeau, North Saskatchewan, Athabasca, Burland, all these rivers here along the central foothills, east through the city of Edmonton. And, we're not talking about flood watches or warnings at this point. But certainly we could see rapid rises in the water. You could see up to 1 meter of rise, fast flowing rivers, localized flooding, low-lying areas. Not a good time to be on the water, of course, but no major flooding expected with this event. But like I say, with that amount of water, some areas localized, picking up 100 plus millimeters, you're going to be seeing standing water, potentially localized flooding in some areas. Hopefully not too much basement flooding, especially in the Edmonton region. So we're going to have to watch out for that. With this system. So another big wet system coming for central Alberta. Keep that in mind. Stay dry this weekend. Thanks for joining me, and we'll talk to you next time.